Hey, let's do a quick overview of Module 7. Since we're kind of running into the midterm of this course, Module 7 is a little bit easier, a little bit more chill. Um, a change from Module 6 was I actually just extended the due date for your perusal readings to the end of Module 7 week. Because it seemed like, since you have your part 2 done or due last week, I didn't want to have too much. So anyway, I expanded that across the 2 weeks. So your readings are across 2 weeks in your comments and perusal. And then otherwise, this week is reflection time. I am going to go through the QIAT for this week. But your main assignment is honestly completing the midterm course design survey. I want to get some feedback from you all on how it's going so that I can make some tweaks going forward and looking at the class in the future. So some constructive feedback would be great. Let me know what's working for you, what's not. And then there's some basic clicking questions to ask. These surveys are anonymous. That means, you can be totally honest and say what you need to say. The only thing I need in order to verify you've each done one is take a quick screenshot of, as you submit it and upload it into the M7 assignment Dropbox. That way I have, your proof that you completed it without having to make the survey tied to your name. All right, so after that note, let's just look at the the quality indicators for AT for this week. I just wanted to say, thank you for your ongoing hard work. I know it's been a tough year. Well, I actually need to fix this. It's not a Qualtrics survey. You're going to do your course design survey, but let's talk about quality indicators for assistive technology implementation, because now we're in the implementation phase of our AT case studies. So it's very relevant to what we're talking about right now. So let's take a look at that. Let me blow up this text a little bit more. Here we go. So we know AT implementation has to do with the way that AT devices and services are provided, and they're included in the IEP. So remember, in the IEP, we should tie together with AT goals and objectives, related services, supplementary aids and services, accommodations and modifications. They should all kind of be considering what that AT is. That we are actually in the phase where we're delivering those devices and services and integrating it into the student's program. So this is kind of the do phase. We've done all the planning, now we got to do it. It means that we're all working together to support the student in learning how to use that assistive technology in a way that's going to benefit him or her, and be collecting the data to make sure that they're making progress, and to see if we need to make changes to the implementation plan. Now, that, remember, I'm going to caution you again, just because it doesn't work that first couple of weeks doesn't mean you throw out the device. First, take a look at how you're implementing it. Are you expecting too much of your student to come up to, interact with this device or support tool independently? Did you give them enough support to really learn how to use it, feel comfortable using it, and then, additional support in generalizing it in other places if that's, how it needs to be used? So be thinking about all of those things. It's not just, oh, it's not working, he's not using it, he just doesn't want to use it. If he doesn't want to use it, then you kind of need to think about how or why you picked this device in the first place. Did the student have input in that? Have you really let them know how this can help them? Have you maybe built in some positive reinforcement surrounding the AT use? All of those things you want to be considering. All right, number one, the AT implementation process proceeds according to the collaboratively developed plan. So are you following the plan? And that's why you write it up, so you make sure everybody's on the same page, detailed information about how and when it will be used, who's going to help with the use of it, who's going to do instruction on the use of it, and so on. Are you following that plan? Number two, AT is integrated into the curriculum and daily activities of the student across environments. So make sure that you're using that AT when and where it's needed to facilitate student access to the curriculum. If you're starting in one spot, that's fine if that's part of the plan. Like we start here and we're going to learn how to use it here, and then we'll kind of expand out. That could certainly be understandable. But ideally, ultimately, you want to help the student generalize the use of this AT to multiple environments and activities, because then it's going to be a more effective and efficient tool for the student. Number 3, persons supporting the student across all environments in which the AT is expected to be used share responsibility for implementation of the plan. This is why you want all those people at the table when you develop the plan. Like, as a teacher in another classroom, if you just came to me and handed me a plan that I had no part of the conversation, I'm going to be a little bit, resistant probably to that plan. So, if you know a student's going to be in certain environments, those teachers should be invited to the discussion when you're developing the plan. They should have a voice in that process. So, if you didn't do that in the first place, then back up a little bit and take a moment to do that with them. They may actually help you problem solve some things before they occur. All right. Everyone should know their roles and responsibilities. Do they need to take data for you? Do you need to give them procedures to follow to help support the student? Be thinking about that. Number 4, persons supporting the student provide opportunities for the student to use a variety of strategies, including assistive technology, and to learn which strategies are most effective for particular circumstances and tasks. So the AT that you decide to implement may or may not work in all places, settings, activities. There's going to be a little bit of trial and error here. Some, systems might work better than others. And obviously, this is a very broad conversation because you're all looking at different types of assistive technology for your students. Encourage your students to consider alternate strategies to remove barriers. You want to, be working toward the most natural, the most unnoticeable AT, right? You want to reduce stigma as much as you can. So, as much as you can, you want to think about what comes with devices already, or what can be put on a device more like a smartphone as opposed to some big clunky machine that they need to carry around. What can be, looking forward to the future, what could this transition to that the student would have access to after they're not in your school anymore? Okay. Number 5, learning opportunities for the student, family, and staff are an integral part of implementation. Remember, AT is not meant to exist in only one space, only in the school. Ideally, if this is a tool the student needs to access anything in the educational environment, chances are they need it to access future academic environments or just future independent living. So if it's working successfully at school, this is the time to consider training family um, to use it at home and figure out how that would be best, used in the home space. Also, maybe other staff that you haven't gotten to yet because you're considering new places to generalize. There's where you need to think about that. All right. And honestly, the needs of a student change over time. So be considering that as you go. Number 6, this is kind of a moving target, right? Um, that's why you want to take the data. You want to keep, looking at that, making adjustments, getting feedback, try to be systematic about it. So it doesn't take too long and you don't wait too long to address needs. Number 6, assistive technology implementation is initially based on assessment data and is adjusted based on performance data. So there you go. Formal and informal assessment data should guide this process, your decision-making and ongoing AT implementation plan. Formal assessments are good because it kind of gives you consistent data. Informal is also good because we know there are limitations to formal assessments that, they don't tell us that the student told me he hates it and throws it across the room, right? Formal data doesn't generally tell us that. But in formal assessments, informal assessment data can help with that. That's also too when you find out from others, like this is really clunky, it's really hard to get to, or, he's resisting me and using this. That's when you find those pieces of kind of problem spots that you might have to address. So you monitor student performance and implementation of the device, and you adjust it as you need to based on whether the student's achieving goals, right? You're scaffolding this process. You might have a short-term goal for this project. As you get to the end of this project, then you figure out where, like, if he or she has met the goal. If not, like, look ahead for another short-term goal until the end of the school year. What goal, where do we want the student to be by the end of the school year? And, adjust that goal accordingly and keep taking that data and seeing how things go. Number 7, AT implementation includes management and maintenance of equipment and materials. So for this technology to be useful, it's really important that equipment management responsibilities are clearly defined and assigned. Who's in charge of the maintenance and the management of the equipment? That's going to differ based on what it is you're using. But some general things you want to think about: who's responsible for getting it in the first place? Who's responsible for setting it up, and whether that's the first time or if it's something that has to be, adjusted frequently, who's going to be doing that? If it breaks, who's repairing it? How will it be replaced in a timely fashion if it should break to the point where it can't be repaired? And then who's making sure the equipment's working? Simple as that. All right. So that should be part of your plan and your ongoing use of the device or tool, I should say. Some common errors teams make: you expect the implementation to be smooth and effective without really addressing specific components in the plan. So this can happen when team members assume everyone understands what needs to happen and knows what to do, but the facts are that they don't. Um, I see this a lot with plans like this. With a lot of IEPs too, we spend a lot of time developing these plans, but we don't really think about how are we teaching the student how to use it. How are we just expecting them to learn? Are we just expecting to say, here it is, now go use it on all of your assignments? That's not going to be effective, right? So don't make that assumption, or that the student will be able to pick it up easily. You need to be ready to support. Another common error: plans for implementation are created and carried out by one IEP team member. That's a lot of responsibility. You're kind of doing that with this case study, but that's really just to give you that hands-on experience. When you do this for real, and even during this case study, this could be part of how you work it. You want to, distribute some of that responsibility. You want to make the student a part of that. They're going to have some responsibility in this process. Just keep in mind, you may have to baby step them to, an independent level. Other teachers or paraprofessionals can certainly help out with some of this. Again, the family, if that's part of what the AT is. So keep in mind, no one's asking one person to do it. We might ask you to do the trial or the initial training. But from that point on, you really want to start expanding outward. You've done the hard work here. Now get other folks on the team to help with, so you can fade out essentially, and just really more monitor and support as needed. Another common error: the team focuses on device acquisition and does not discuss implementation. So they're focused on getting it. Oh, good, we got it. Here you go, kid. Use it. Not the greatest way to go about that, right? An implementation plan is developed that is incompatible with the instructional environments. So if you're talking about a lot of intensive one-on-one training, but there's nobody available to do that, or there's no time in the student's day to do that, this is not a compatible process. You have to figure out how to do the training in the environments that the student is existing in. Okay, so how can you do it in the current setting? That's why you're really looking at those environments before you make decisions. Another error: no one takes responsibility for the care and maintenance of AT devices, and so they are not available or in working order when needed. That's a problem. The last one is contingency plans for dealing with broken or lost devices are not made in advance. So you have no plan for when the screen breaks, or they left it at home or whatever. So be thinking about, you always want to have a contingency plan. Whether that means you have, if it's a communication device, that you have perhaps a lower tech device or a paper based, picture based communication board type thing on hand and ready to go in case there's something wrong with the fancy device. It could be lots of things. It could be that if you're using pencil grips, that you have multiple pencil grips, so that in case it gets lost or ripped or torn or forgotten, you have another one to just grab. That's what we're talking about here. Have a contingency plan in place. And then all I'm really asking you to do this through this module is reflect on that. You have gone through part 1 and 2. You've developed, designed a plan. You're starting to implement it now. So think about these quality indicators and the common errors that many teams make, and reflect on your own practice here. Do you struggle with some of these errors? Do some of your team members struggle with them? What are some steps you could take to improve your practice in this area? As you proceed with your case study, how can you make sure you do not fall subject to these common errors? How can you plan so that you don't fall into that space and instead you hit those quality indicators? So be thinking about that. Keep notes on that process. It's going to help you as you work on your part 3, which is all the implementation and the data collection based on that. All right, folks. As I mentioned earlier, plan for this week is to read through all of this, do that reflection. You're not turning your reflection into me. I want you to just personally reflect on that. And then as you're reflecting, reflect on the course so far this semester, because I would like you to complete the anonymous course survey so I can get some feedback on how things are going. And then again, I remember I extended the deadline for the perusal assignment from module 6. So please complete any of your comments, replies to peers in those readings. Those should all be done by the end of this module week. This week is lighter so that you have time to focus on beginning the implementation of your AT case study. Again, look out for those common errors, and that is the plan. So hope you're all doing well, and I guess let me know. Let me know if you have questions or concerns, and I appreciate your time and all of your good hard work. Take care.